Hi, and welcome to the notes for H3-11. Today we're going to focus on adding and subtracting rational expressions. What we want to make sure that we are able to do is, first of all, find least common denominators, rewrite fractions with common denominators, and then add and subtract rational expressions. Let's get started. First of all, we've got a few warm-up problems. It says complete the following. And you'll see it says 3/7 equals blank 35ths. There's a couple ways you could reach out and do these. You could say, hey, I'm going to turn this into a proportion and cross multiply, right? I could say that's 7x equals 3 times 35, which would be 105. And then you could take it and divide each side by 7. And I believe you would end up there with x equals 15. So 3/7 is equal to 15/35. Now that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to look at it as 35 is the same thing as 5 times 7. And since we have a factor of 7 in each of these, I'm just multiplying, that's 7 times a 5. So if I multiplied this times 5, it gives me 35. So I'd have to multiply the top by a 5 as well. And you'll see when we do that, we actually end up with 15 there as well. So two different methods get us the same answers. Okay, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on using that second method, okay, just by multiplying by the factors that are missing. So when we look at the next problem, we have 8 over 3a equals blank over 18a squared. When we think about the difference between our 3a and our 18a squared, right, what do I have to multiply 3 by to get 18? Well, we know that's 6, right? So in order to turn our 3 into an 18, I'm going to have to multiply it by a 6. And then what do I have to multiply a by to get a squared? I'd have to multiply it by an a. So if I multiply 6a times 3a, I'll get 18a squared, which means we're also going to have to multiply the top by a 6a. So when we do 6a times 8, we're going to end up with 48a. All right, looking down at the bottom here, you see we have 2 over the quantity of x minus 5, and we're trying to say that equals blank over the quantity of x minus 5 times an x plus 1. So what's missing on our left side is this x plus 1. So let's multiply the left side times an x plus 1, but if we do it to the bottom, we must also do it to the top. So when I do 2 times the quantity of x plus 1, I'm just going to leave it as 2 times the quantity of x plus 1, right? And now we have finished that problem there. So 2 over the quantity of x minus 5 is the same thing as 2 times the quantity of x plus 1 over the quantity of x minus 5 times an x plus 1. Let's move on. The next set of directions says to find the least common denominator. Remember, that's what LCD means. It means to find the least common denominator. And I know that you have been talking about common denominators for a number of years. So I just want to make sure I spelled it correctly, denominator. All right, so if we're just trying to figure out what the least common denominator is, we need to find all the factors in each of them. Okay, so when we look at our two denominators, we have 6x minus 30, and we've got 9x minus 45. Let's factor each of them. It looks like here we're going to have a common factor of 6 that we could factor out. So this would be like saying 6 times the quantity of x minus 5. In our fraction on the right, looks like we have a 9 in common here. If we factor out that 9, we're going to have a x minus 5 left over. Okay, so right now we're seeing here that they both have a factor of x minus 5. Now let's take those numerals and break them down a little bit more. I have a 2 times a 3 times the quantity of x minus 5. And then we know that 9 is a 3 times a 3 times the quantity of x minus 5. So when we look at it now, we have an x minus 5 in each of them, and they each have 1, 3. Okay, so you'll notice here that the left side has a 2 that the right side doesn't have, and then the right side has a 3 that the left side doesn't have. So in order to make these, be the same denominator here, we're going to have the same factors in each of them. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to multiply our left side times a 3, right? Because this one has another 3. And we're going to have to multiply the right side by the 2 that's missing. And now they each have a 2 times a 3 times a 3 times a quantity of x minus 5. And you see that in both of them. So what is our least common denominator? Well, it's 2 times 3 times 3 times a quantity of x minus 5. Or we could simplify that and say it is going to be 18 times the quantity of x minus 5. This is our least common denominator. All right, let's move on. It says rewrite the following with their least common denominators. So again, we need to look at all the factors of our denominators first. So x squared minus 8x plus 16 factors into x minus 4 times the quantity of x minus 4. And then our x squared minus 7x plus 12 will factor into x minus 3 times the quantity of x minus 4. So right offhand, you'll notice that both sides have an x minus 4. But then we've got this x minus 3 here that the left side doesn't have. So let's go ahead and multiply the left side times an x minus 3. Okay, so now they'll both have that x minus 3. And then our left side had another x minus 4. So we're going to need a second x minus 4 on the other side. So when I do that, now you're going to see that we have the same terms. We have an x minus 3, and then we have two x minus 4s on both of them. Okay, now, remember, if we change the bottom by multiplying by an x minus 3, we're also going to have to change the top, right? We're going to have to multiply it by an x minus 3. And remember, this just has the same value as 1. On the right side, we multiplied the bottom by an x minus 4, so we're going to also have to multiply the top by an x minus 4. And you'll see here the same thing. X minus 4 over x minus 4 is really just 1. So we're not changing its value, just what it looks like. So if we look to rewrite this, okay, what we're going to have then is 9 times the quantity of x minus 3 over an x minus 3 times the quantity of x minus 4. You could even say x minus 4 squared if you want to. And then on the right side, I'm going to have a 5 times the quantity of x minus 4 over that same denominator. So now they're written with their least common denominator. All right, so let's look at the second one. We have 3 over c squared minus 6c, and then we have 5 over c squared plus 6c. So let's factor it. Let's factor out that greatest common factor, would then leave us with c minus 6 times a c. And on the right side, we'll factor out that c, and we'll have a c times a c plus 6. Okay, so again, both of them have a c, but now we're going to need to multiply the left side by what we have on the right side that's missing. So that would be like a c plus 6. And then now that they both have that, okay, we're going to have to also multiply the right side by a c minus 6 so that they both have one of those. And again, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by that new factor. That way we will keep it proportional. So in the end, when we're looking at it here, we're going to have a 3 times the quantity of c plus 6 over c times the quantity of c plus 6 times c minus 6. And then in our right fraction, we'd have a 5 times the quantity of c minus 6 over the same denominator, c times c plus 6 times c minus 6. So that's how we look to rewrite the following with their least common denominators. Okay, another one here says rewrite the following with their least common denominator. So this is just the same as the last ones. If you would like to pause the video, try it, and then see if you get it right, that might be a good idea. Let's start out by factoring the denominator again. So this denominator should factor into a plus 5 times a minus 2. And on the right side, we should have an a plus 5 times another a plus 5. So you'll see on the left side, we're missing a second a plus 5. So let's multiply the denominator by an a plus 5. And then do the same thing to the top. And then on the right side, we're going to multiply by an a minus 2 on the top and the bottom. And that will allow us to rewrite these as 2 times the quantity of a plus 5 over, we have an a minus 2 times an a plus 5 squared, or you could write it out twice if you want to do that. And then on the right side here, we're going to have a 4a times the quantity of a minus 2 over the same denominator, a minus 2 times the quantity of a plus 5 squared. Okay, so hopefully that's making sense. Let's go ahead and move on. Now we're actually going to take it and add or subtract our rational expressions. So in order to do this, remember, we must have a common denominator. So when we look at number 1, we have 7x over 15y squared plus a y over 18xy. When I take my 15y squared, I'm just going to break down the numeral part of it to 3 times 5 times our y squared. On the right side here, we're going to have a 2 times a 3 times a second, a second 3, right? And then times x times y. So if we're looking at what factors do we need to multiply each side by, well, we have on each of them, I have a 1y here, I have 1y there. We still need a second y. Okay, and we have a 3 in each of them there. And that looks like all that they really have in common. So I'm going to need to multiply the left one by a 2, a 3, and an x. Okay, so in that case here, I could just call that 2 times 3 is like a 6. So I'm going to multiply it by a 6x. Remember, if we do it to the bottom, we're also going to do it to the top. Okay, and then on the right side, okay, we're going to have to multiply it by, we have an extra 5 and an extra y. So I'm going to multiply it by 5y on the bottom, and then we're also going to multiply the top by 5y. And now let's look and see what we have. 6x times 7x is going to give us 42x squared over, when we multiply our numbers all together here, we've got 6 times 5 times 3. Well, 6 times 5 is 30, times 3 is 90. Xy squared plus, on the right side, okay, we already know on the bottom here we should end up with a 90 xy squared. And then on the top we have a 5y squared. So now that we have common denominators, we can take this and rewrite this as one fraction. 42x squared plus 5y squared all over 90xy squared. And that would be our answer. Now, a lot of times we'll look to see, will anything simplify and reduce down? In this case here, because we found our least common denominator, okay, in this case, that one does not reduce down at all. Okay, we don't have any common factors that we see in both those terms in the top. Now let's look at number 2. We have 3 minus m over 3m plus m squared minus 2 over 5m squared. So again, our denominator on the left is just 3 times m. On the right, we have a 5 times an m times an m. So we need to look at, they both share 1 m. That means that our fraction on the left is going to have to be multiplied by a 5 and an m. So we'll just say times 5m on both the top and the bottom. And then the right fraction is going to need to be multiplied by that 3. So if we do it on the bottom, we also have to do it on the top. So where are we at here? Well, we've got 5m times the quantity of 3 minus m over 15m squared plus, we have a 3 times the quantity of m squared minus 2 all over 15m squared. And now we want to take it and we want to take each of these expressions and simplify them, and then we can add it all together into one fraction. So when you distribute your 5m through here, you should have a 15m minus 5m squared plus, over here we're going to distribute this 3 through. We've got 3 times m squared would be 3m squared. And then 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6. And now I'm going to take it and just put the whole thing over 15m squared. And we'll need to take it here and look to see if we can simplify it down. So we do have some like terms here, negative 5m squared and positive 3m squared. When we add those together, right, that's going to give us a negative 2m squared plus 15m minus 6 all over 15m squared. And that's looking like our answer. Now we'd always want to take this and we'd want to try to factor it to see if it would factor down anymore. In this case, I don't believe it's going to factor for us there, so we're just going to go ahead and leave it and call it our answer. All right, let's move on. So number 3, it just says to simplify. So we have the quantity of x plus 6 over 6x minus 18. Let's factor that denominator. When we factor out that 6, we have the quantity of x minus 3 left over. On the right side, we'll factor out the 2, and we have an x minus 3 left over. So for this one, in order for us to get a common denominator, right, if we think about that 6 as being 2 times 3 times the quantity of x minus 3, then it looks like the only thing that's missing is that factor of 3 on the right side. So let's just go ahead and multiply the bottom times a 3 and the top times a 3. So what we're looking at here is, first of all, we didn't change our x plus 6, right? It's still x plus 6, and we can leave it as being over 6 times the quantity of x minus 3 plus, we've got 3 times the quantity of x minus 6 on the top of our right fraction, and on the bottom we have 6 times the quantity of x minus 3. Let's distribute this through to simplify our numerator. So we're going to have plus 3x minus 18, now just over 1 denominator. And then can we combine our like terms there? We're going to have 3x plus x would be 4x minus 12, and that is over 6 times the quantity of x minus 3. And now when we get down to this point, we think we're done, but what we need to double check here is, does this factor and reduce any more? In this case, I could factor out a 4, and I'm left with x minus 3 left over. And when that is over 6 times the quantity of x minus 3, we have the ability now to simplify. Right? This factor and this factor will simplify. And then we know that 4 is the same thing as 2 times 2. 6 is the same thing as 2 times 3. So we can go ahead and cancel out a 2 from each of them there. And we'll see that our final answer for this ends up being 2/3. All that work just to get 2/3. All right, so number 4. Now we're changing it up a bit. We have subtraction. When I have a 3 times a y in one denominator and 2 times y in the other, that just means I need to multiply my fraction on the left times a 2 on the top and the bottom, and the fraction on the right times a 3 on the top and bottom. So now we're going to have a 6y as our denominator on both of them. And then when I multiply on the top, 2 times 4 is going to be 8. And then 2 times 3y would be plus 6y. Now don't get cancel happy. Don't try to cancel those 6y's because you're adding something to one of them. And on the top on this side, we're going to have 3. When we take it here, we're going to just distribute it through. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2y is plus 6y. And now let's take this here and let's rewrite this as one fraction. And this is where you really need to be careful. I have 8 plus 6y minus, and because I have a quantity up here, right, I'm subtracting that whole thing. So I'm going to say minus the quantity of 3 plus 6y. And right now that's all over just a single 6y. And when we go through here now and we simplify the whole thing, we'll distribute this negative through. We've got 8. And then we've got plus 6y minus 3 minus 6y all over 6y. Well, on the top, we've got this one and this one are going to cancel. And then we've got 8 minus 3 is going to be 5. And then our denominator is still 6y. So we get 5 over 6y is our answer. All right, a couple more and then we'll be done here. So you just have to make sure you're paying attention to this. Okay, if it's minus, just got to be careful. Let's factor first. We have x plus 12 over 4x minus 16. That's going to give us a 4 times the quantity of x minus 4. On the right side, if we factor out a 2, we'd have 2 times the quantity of x minus 4. So for this one, again, remember 4 contains the factors 2 and 2. So all we need is a second 2 on our denominator on the right. So if I multiply the bottom times 2, I'm going to multiply the top times 2. And here's what we've got. X plus 12 over our 4 times the quantity of x minus 4 minus 2 times the quantity of x plus 4 over our 4 times the quantity of x minus 4. And now that we have common denominators, let's just rewrite it as one fraction. X plus 12. Remember, this is this minus sign here. So minus 2 times the quantity of x plus 4 over a single denominator. And then we can distribute this negative 2 through to get x plus 12 minus 2x minus 8, okay, over a 4 times the quantity of x minus 4. We combine our like terms, we're going to have a negative x plus 4 left over, and then we've got 4 times the quantity of x minus 4 on the bottom. Okay, so those don't look the same, but there is a relationship here, remember, between negative x plus 4 and x minus 4. They're opposites. So if you would like, you could take this and you could factor out a negative, right? We'll say it's negative 1 times the quantity of x minus 4 over an x minus 4. And now we can simplify, right? That is going to cancel with that. And I'm sorry, I forgot to write my 4 in there. That 4 is still there. And it looks like all that's left there is going to be a negative 1/4. And that would be our answer. So remember, we're not solving for x. There's x's in it. We're just trying to simplify our answers down as much as we can. All right, let's get into this last one here. We've got x minus 3 over x squared plus 5x plus 6, and then we're adding 4 over 3x plus 9. Let's factor everything first. We have x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 2. And on this side, we're going to have a 3 times the quantity of x plus 3 after you factor it out. So looking at what we have in common, they each have an x plus 3, which means I'm going to need to multiply both of them by a 3, or make sure that they both have a 3. And then I'll have to multiply by an x plus 2. So if I do that to the bottom and the top, I'm also going to do it to the bottom and the top with the 3. And now let's see where we're at. We're going to have 3 times the quantity of x minus 3 over 3 times the quantity of x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 2. And then we're adding to that there 4 times the quantity of x plus 2, right? That's this one over here. And then it's over 3 times the quantity of x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 2. Let's distribute through and then combine our like terms. So 3x minus 9. Now I'm going to distribute my 4 through. It says plus 4x plus 8. And we're looking at there, 3x plus 4x is 7x. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. And we will just continue to just recopy our denominator down because it doesn't look like anything simplifies beyond that. So 3 times the quantity of x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 2. And we are done. If you're looking for a way to maybe check your answers, you could always find a value of x that does not make your denominator equal 0, right? And you could take it and you could plug it in for your x values. If you want to use a calculator and type it all in to see what you get, okay, your answer should give you the same value if you plug in that x value in there. And we can look at that later on if we need to. All right, so that is our notes for section H3-11. We're going to spend a day practicing this tomorrow, so if you don't fully get all of your homework done or understand it, make sure you bring questions, and then we'll do some more practice after that in class. All right, H3-11, that's it. Thanks for watching.